call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. If you would all please rise for an invocation from Dr. and Councilwoman Stephanie Grassett.
Tonight we pray for wisdom, for strength, and for the courage to do what is right and good for the citizens of this city. May we always put the interests of others above our own. May we act with love for the common good. May we be good neighbors, good stewards, and may we never forget to recognize your image in the faces of all those we serve who, like us, call Seaford home. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. If you remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. Are there any changes to the agenda for this meeting?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay. Next on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the meeting we had on August the 13th. You've all received the minutes from our previous meeting. If there are no changes or corrections, I'll set the motion to receive those minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on August 13th, 2024.
We have a motion from Councilman Quillen. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second from Councilman Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Do we have anybody here for public comment?
No, there's no one here for public comment.
Okay. Is there anybody here for correspondence?
No, we have no correspondence, sir.
Okay. To best serve our time, I think move through liaison reports initially.
Or would you like to do the bids for the public works?
We need a bid, that'd be quick enough. Yeah,
Mr. Mears
let's do that.
can help us with that.
All right, move to new business number 3. Jumping right into it.
Good evening, Mr. Mears.
Thank you for your flexibility.
evening.
Okay, so a few months ago, I came before you guys to get approval to install meters in some residential communities that we knew already had meter pits, and then...
Could we do new business number 3, the truck?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all
See,
right.
that's why I was ready to
Got
go
you
right
focused.
over. Yep. Yep, so we received 2 bids for a new truck for me, for Public Works Department. We received 2 bids, one from Hershey Fleet Sales, one from First State. We had, in the bid, we had 2 trade-ins, 2010 and a 2011, both F-150s, both 4-wheel drive. I decided to keep one for the amount that they're giving us for trade-in. It's always good to have an extra vehicle that we share between some departments. We had $50,000 budgeted, so with the one trade-in, we're still well under budget with, is that the right price, 37?
Nope, 41.
Nope, so it'd be 4 more, so it'd be 41,989.
Okay. Are there any questions from council regarding this matter?
Just have one question, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Quillen.
Apparently, First State wasn't willing to give you any trade value on the trades.
No, and in their bid, they put a note in there saying that if we would allow them to pick it up and thoroughly look over it, that they would give us a trade-in amount, but they had ample time because in our bid, they could have did that ahead of time. So
Okay, thank you.
they did come out and actually look at them, but I guess it wasn't.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Director Mears? Vice Mayor.
In our liaison meeting, there was some mention that you had loaned a truck to the Parks Department. Does that come back at some time, or is that a permanent?
That was a permanent transfer, because when they go ahead and order their new truck, they're going to trade one in.
Okay.
Yep.
So, question about financing. Does Does the capital value of that truck get transferred to the Parks Department, or is it just all in the wash? How does that work?
I mean, and the Director of Finance is here, if I misspeak, at that point, that truck is so far depreciated.
So it's,
I don't think
But
we change it behind the scene.
what's the age of it? I didn't know the serviceability of it.
So, okay, so it's confusing. The 2010 actually was the one that we gave to the Parks Department.
Okay.
Then when wastewater got their new truck, I took
Here we go.
2010 back, and we gave them their two-wheel drive truck because we only got offered, I
Okay,
think,
all right.
$1,500 or something like that, so. The truck I gave to them already had lights and some different things, so I figured that would be better use in our department, so,
Thanks.
yeah, it's confusing.
Are there
We're
any,
all,
is everybody paying attention? Okay. Are there any additional questions for Director Mears? Okay. If there are no further questions, I'll accept the motion.
Councilwoman Grassett, I'd like to make a motion to award the bid for the Public Works truck to the low bidder, Hertrick Fleet Services Incorporated, for the amount of $41,989 as presented.
All right. We have a motion from Councilwoman Grassett. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. We got a second from Vice Mayor Henderson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously. I'm going to jump around a little bit here. We're going to move back to the public hearing. It take place at 7:05. It's actually 7:06 p.m. currently.
All right. So the first item on tonight's public hearing is for BCDE Investments Group LLC. They're property owners of 415 North Front Street. They're requesting to subdivide that single lot into 3 separate buildable lots. Tax map and parcel 431-2.00-24.00. Zoning is C1 General Commercial District. This is the parcel there, vacant land. Formerly, we used as parking for the auto parts store across the street there on the corner of Front and Walker Street. And they have supplied a survey showing the proposed subdivision with 3 residential lots. They did have to apply for variance for these lots, and that got approved on July 3rd. And the Board of Adjustment granted that variance to allow them to build dwellings on these properties in the C1 zone, following the rules of the R2 development, which is just behind them on North Street. And these proposed lots do meet the R2 requirements, which are 4,500 square foot minimum lot size, minimum lot width of 35 feet. And they're showing the setbacks there as that dashed box there in each property. Front yard setback 15, side yard 14 aggregate with a 6-foot minimum, and the rear is 20. Brad Kaufman and David Ball are here representing the property, if there's any questions.
Can you show me where on there there's parking
Yeah, they
for the residences?
They show them on the left-hand side there, proposed entrances. The one at the top has it there just on the corner, and they're kind of together there in the middle of the other 2 lots. This is just the proposed entrance that they could run the parking back behind, wherever they want, where it'll fit in the lot. The houses are not going to fill up the whole thing, so they'll be on the side or in the front.
So it'll be 3 driveway entrances onto North
Yes.
Front Street, okay.
Are there any additional questions for Mr. Bailey, Mr. Ball, or Mr. Kaufman from council? Okay. Are there any questions or comments from the public on this matter? All right, move on next one.
So the second item for tonight is for Governor's Grant Investors LLC, property owner on a parcel on Chesapeake Drive. They're requesting a final site plan review for the Governor's Grant Phase 4, tax map and parcel 531-10.00-379.00. Zoning is R2 medium density residential. This is the final phase back there in the back of Governor's Grant, currently vacant, mostly wooded right now. Got it highlighted there in the blue. and they have submitted this site plan showing a proposed 40 lots to be subdivided off that parcel. And they're going to extend Chesapeake Drive and connect it into Bethany Drive back by the stormwater pond. Part of this work will be extending the water, sewer, and electric services to these lots. And they have to make improvements to the existing stormwater pond to cover these lots. Plus, it has some deficiencies now that they're going to correct as part of that work. They need approvals from State Fire Marshal, Sussex Conservation, and our city engineer for the stormwater because it outfalls into the industrial park tax ditch. Gus Kroll's here from the property owner. If there's any questions, here I could answer.
Are there any questions from council for Mr. Bailey or Mr. Kroll on this matter? Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, in the previous slide, it shows that there's supposed to be some approvals needed by Sussex Conservation. Does that include the repair of deficiencies?
Yeah, they'll require that repair to be made as part of their approval.
If we were to grant this approval, thank you. I got locked up there for a second. Then that would be included in this, that would be a prerequisite for
Yes, sir.
the approval.
They can't do the project without making that repair.
All right, thank you.
Are there any additional, hang on one second, sir. Are there any additional questions from council regarding this matter? Councilman Quinlan.
Yes, piggybacking off of what Vice Mayor Henderson was talking about, I attended the Planning and Zoning meeting on August the 1st as well, and there was some concern about who was going to pay for the repairs to the pond. I don't know if we need to, if we go any further with this, if we need to put anything in here if it goes to motion and the motion is approved, that we need to add anything here to this stating that Mr. Cole will be taking care of the pond and the repairs onto the pond.
Just to ask the question, would Mr. Kroll like to come up and just talk about what improvements to the stormwater management system are proposed as part of his developmental process? Thank you, Mr. Kroll.
Yes. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good
Ladies and
evening.
gentlemen. My name is Gus Kroll. I'm one of the developers of this project. With regards to this, the stormwater management pond, it's been out of compliance for an extended period. So when we decided to acquire this property, part of that was to bring that pond into compliance. After a couple public hearings, et cetera, we figured that it would be best for both communities that if my community took over the responsibilities of that pond completely and relieve the other subdivision of those obligations, because it's predominantly on my property to begin with. There'll be cross access easements granted, and I need their outlet that's on their side. So as part of that condition, I will be doing the recommended repairs as designed by soil conservation and my engineers. Right now, the last thing was we did some additional hydrology tests, because right now it's an infiltration pond where the water's going to percolate. The pond out front of that subdivision has a liner, so it holds water. So this pond's designed to be dry within 48 to 72 hours after a rain event. We've done extensive hydrology for the area outside of this, because this is draining into, I believe, a ditch that's owned by the city of Seaford that may have a little bit of issue with its drainage, which may require me to do some corrective action off-site and into one of the ponds that is constructed around the corner from it. So.
And Mr. Kroll, just to ask the question, the long-term maintenance of this pond, could you just talk about that?
Yes. This pond was built, I believe, in 2005 or so, roughly. And when I first looked at it, they were saying there was a problem with it, and I couldn't see what the problem was because, quite frankly, it looks
fine. They can mow it. It doesn't have phragmites or anything like that, and it just doesn't meet or comply with the standards, especially the updated standards. And it was never turned over or finally approved by soil conservation. There was a punch list that never got completed. Well, since that time, the punch list and the regulations have changed, so the punch list has gotten much larger. One of the issues is with the outfall structure, so that has to be removed and replaced. But overall, the pond is functioning as it's intended. The improvements that we're going to make is we're going to remove 2 feet of soil out of the bottom and replace it with 2 feet of concrete sand that's very porous. And so that should ensure the long-term viability of the pond. The next major issue was the maintenance of it. We're going to take care of mowing the grass, et cetera. So there'll be no cost to the other subdivision at all. We will assume liability and anything else associated with that. And that will be required by soil conservation prior to us beginning construction.
And as far as long-term, there will be an HOA that will be formed with these 40 lots.
That is correct.
That will take over the long-term maintenance.
Yes, that is correct, because the city of Seaford, in their ordinances, they don't take over the ponds, so the HOA, the size of this HOA is large enough to easily economically afford to maintain that pond. So there wouldn't be a hardship on them. Now, should we have a major flood, there is an outlet that allows the water to drain so the pond's not going to overflow. And it's rather deep too, by the way. So the pond should not need anything after we're done with it. So that would be, there's no effect to the other subdivision as far as its drainage or what's happening to it. So it should be an improvement, and we should comply prior to the final subdivision being turned over to the city, the roads and stuff. A condition of that will be having that pond accepted by soil conservation. And there is an acceptance process to that.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions from council for Mr. Kroll or Mr. Bailey? Okay. We have a question from the public. If you don't mind, come up to the podium, stating your name and ask the question.
Gene Logan. I live in Governor's Grant. Just want to know, Mr. Kroll, are you going to, you said you take over the responsibility and the title of that other little section here, this part up here?
That is correct.
Are you working on that?
Yes, yeah, the attorneys will work that out.
Ask him, get a mic.
Mr. Logan, could you speak into the mic, please? Your question, just for a public comment.
Yeah, that will be between our attorneys and the HOA to get those documents signed to move that property line around.
Okay.
Yeah. But there'll be a cross-access easement, so you will be able to access the pond and the perimeter of it as well.
Right, right. That'll work for us. But we just, we're going to give you that section. We want you to have it.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments from the public? Please come forward.
My name is Andrea Weber. I live in the condos, and I'm sorry, I don't have my glasses on. So I just want to be clear. It's the pond right behind Magnolia Drive to the right. That's what you're talking about?
No.
Is
Mr.
that
Kroll,
the
can you come forward in
retention?
the microphone? Just
Sure.
That'll help.
So the pond is already there, ma'am.
I understand that.
And
So
we're just going to.
so that's the one you're talking about, but that's the one my HOA has been maintaining and paying for this whole time,
Yes.
correct?
No,
Okay.
no.
No,
Let me
you're
correct
No,
that.
I have a different.
So, Mike, hold on. Mike, could you show the one she's referring to? That's the one
Okay,
that
that's
you're,
yours.
that's yours.
Okay,
The one that Mr. Kroll is talking about is there.
okay,
So they're in close proximity, but they are two different ponds.
okay,
And they're not interconnected.
They are not.
okay, that was all. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying, Mike. Any more questions or comments from the public? Okay.
Public hearing item number 3 has been withdrawn for now. Their plan that they had submitted is changing, so she's supposed to be bringing me something tomorrow, and we'll run that again in the future.
All right, so we're going to close the public hearing at 7:19 PM and reopen the regular meeting.
So we'll go back to the item number 1. These are the findings of facts. This is a lot subdivision for BCDE Investments Group LLC, property located on 415 North Front Street. Tax map and parcels 431-2.00-24.00. Zoning is C1 General Commercial District. They're proposing to subdivide the property into 3 lots for single-family homes. A variance was approved July 3rd, 2024, to allow construction of the single-family dwellings in the C1 zone. The board approved the variance for single-family homes using R2 lot sizes and setbacks, and these proposed lots do meet the R2 requirements. Minimum lot size 4,500 square feet, minimum lot width 35 feet, and they will use the setbacks 15 in the front, 14 aggregate side, 6-foot minimum, and the rear is 20. And Planning and Zoning did make a favorable recommendation to council for approval at their August 1st meeting.
Okay. At this point, I'll receive a motion on public hearing item number 1.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the request of BCDE Investment Groups LLC, property owner of 415 North Front Street, for the subdivision of a single lot into 3 separate lots. Tax map and parcel number 431-2.00-24.00, Zone C1 General Commercial District as presented, based on facts and findings.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Quillen. Do I hear a second on the motion?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
I have a second from Councilman Holland. Are there any questions on this motion? Okay, at this point, we'll do a roll call vote. I'll begin with Vice Mayor Dan Henderson.
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Okay, and Councilwoman Grassett,
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Holland,
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Bradley,
Yes, based on findings of facts.
and Councilman Quillen.
Yes, based on findings and facts.
Okay, passes unanimously.
So we'll move on to agenda item number 2, findings of facts. Project is the final site plan review for the Governor's Grant Phase 4. Owners are Governor's Grant Investors LLC. Property is located on Chesapeake Drive. Tax map and parcel 531-10.00-379.00. The zoning is R2 medium density residential. They're proposing to subdivide the existing parcel into 40 single-family dwelling lots. They will extend Chesapeake Drive and connect it into Bethany Drive, extend water, sewer, and electric, make improvements to the existing stormwater pond, and they will need approvals from state fire marshals, such as conservation, city engineer for the stormwater. And Planning and Zoning also made a favorable recommendation to council for approval August 1st, 2024.
Okay. At this time, I'll seek a motion on public hearing item number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the request of Governor's Grant Investors LLC, property owner of parcel on Chesapeake Drive, for a final site plan approval for the Governor's Grant Phase 3, tax map and parcel 531-1.0. I have some problems with my glasses here, sorry. Tax map and parcel number 531-10.00-379.00, zoned R2 medium density residential with the stipulation of a successful Sussex County Conservation District completion of stormwater management as presented.
Okay. We have a motion from Vice Mayor Henderson. I seek a motion or second on the motion.
I second the motion.
A second from Councilman Bradley. Are there any questions on the motion?
I got one. Is it 3 or 4, Charles? That is, phase 4 is what I heard the building officials say. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem, yeah.
I didn't
Just
see
wanted
the
to
IRV. I saw,
Yeah, yes, it is.
did-
then I will
authorized.
correct, I stand corrected. It's Governor's Grant Phase 4.
Good catch there, Councilman Holland. Are there any additional questions on the motion? Okay, if there are no additional questions, call for a roll call vote. Vice Mayor Dan Henderson.
I'll vote yes, based on findings of facts.
All right. Councilwoman Stephanie Grassett.
Approve based on findings of facts.
Councilman Holland.
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Councilman Bradley.
Yes, based on findings and facts.
And Councilman Quinlan.
Yes, based on findings of facts.
Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barely. Moving on to new business number 1.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So before you this evening, we have Tri-State Community Partners to present the results on a condition survey that they did on the Jay's Nest Playground at the Seaford Sports Complex and discuss the plan and the renovations and enhancement to that facility. So a little bit of backstory real quick. As you know, the Jay's Nest was originally constructed in 2002 as a community-wide playground. Over the years, it has deteriorated some, even resulting in a shutdown last year in 2023 for some potentially life-threatening safety hazards to be remediated. During this time, Tri-State Community Partners, which is the nonprofit arm of the development that's happening out at Nylon Capital Shopping Center, approached then Mayor Genshaw and I to sit on an advisory committee. They have a fiduciary responsibility to reinvest in our community, and we were talking through several projects, and this one really resonated with them, and they wanted to jump on board. And so that survey was presented to our Parks and Recreation Committee in July. It was July 10th. They really felt that this needed to be sent before council. They really embraced what was presented. So I'm not going to talk any further. I am going to introduce to you the president and of the board from Tri-State, Mr. Will Horrocks, and he will introduce the rest of his team.
Thank you, Tricia. That was basically a better version of the intro I was going to do, so thank you. I am Will Horrocks, president of Tri-State Community Partners, and as Tricia said, when speaking with community members, the Jay's Nest Playground was identified, and we then enlisted the professional services of Brad from Ground Reconsidered, which is a professional architecture firm and specializing in public places. So we had him and his team go out and do a survey of the current state of the affairs of the playground to see what we can do now, what we could potentially do later, and hopefully make a big difference in that space. So I'm going to let the professional come up and talk about the what we found. Brad, you want to come on up?
All right, thank you very much. I just press the buttons to advance. Good. All right. So we're going to review observations. So we did a site visit, and I'm just going to share a little bit about what we saw very quickly. We have a lot of content here, so I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, try to cover most of it. If you could hold questions until the end, that would be helpful. Then we will review initial recommendations for immediate action, and then long-term recommendations for going beyond just addressing immediate issues. For initial effort, we took a dive into where this playground came from. This is just a study intent slide that was kind of already covered in the introduction. We looked at the playground in the context of what the surrounding community has as far as assets and adjacencies. We also looked at the history of the playground in addition to just our visual audit of what the current condition is. We recognize this is a Leathers and Associates playground. They had a couple different delivery methods. This one was bringing the community together in a community build. So there's Traditionally, a lot of emotional attachment when the delivery method is that way and it's not built by a contractor. We recognize that there's donor recognition all over this playground on almost every surface. The playground itself, when it was built, was 2002. Here we are in 2024. It's built primarily of pressure-treated wood, which has a life expectancy of anywhere from like 20 to 40 years, depending on what the contact is with the ground and what the conditions are of the build. This was also right at a period where there was a transition with how the pressure treated was, the chemicals used in pressure treating, and also fastener hardware being appropriately corrosion resistant to the chemicals in the wood. So we have a little dissimilar conflict here on some fastener points. Again, there's some of the sampling of the donor recognition, which is throughout the entire playground. Generally, the playground is divided into 2 play groups, which is very traditional of 5 to 12, 2 to 5. There are some sand areas, which surprisingly, this is not always the case. They're in very good shape. The times of our visits, the sand has been kept very clean. So I commend you guys for that. I also commend the community for having sand on a public playground. That's often not provided. The safety surface itself is engineered wood fiber, which is an accessible surface if it's well maintained. This surfacing is well maintained. Sour, when we dug down a little bit in a few areas, we found that the wood fiber had really kind of decomposed over time, and it didn't take long to get to kind of a soily kind of consistency, which does not provide the impact attenuation that you need for a fall event. So we believe that it's about time to do a full depth replacement. This could be confirmed with an impact test, just to confirm that our hunch is right, but I believe it is. The slides themselves are in very good condition, even though they're plastic. We didn't observe a lot of etching, graffiti, burning, some of the things that we normally see on public playgrounds. There's some missing hardware that can be easily addressed, and some of the foundations are a little unstable, again, easily addressed. So we think there's more life left in these slides. The swing is at the end of its life. The timber itself is just kind of gone. There's nothing left in it, and the fasteners themselves, the fastening plates, are at the end of their life as well. One of the things with pressure-treated wood and how the Leathers Associates playgrounds were constructed is ultimately you end up with a lot of end grain exposed to the elements, which is never good for wood. There were some cross-cuts on it to help shed the water, but still there's going to be water getting into that end grain. And in the kind of the top image, kind of second in from the right, you can see me kind of pulling away at that post there, which is supporting a tunnel. So you have some structural elements that don't have their integrity anymore that need to be addressed. There's also, let's see if I can, no, I can't move the mouse. The bottom image in the center two that's on the left, we dug around a few of the posts, and we found that there was some rot at the base of the posts. That warrants further investigation. We don't know how pervasive that is and what's going to be required to fix it without going through and doing some more intensive investigation and probably talking to some contractors on what the options are. There might be a way to splice in a new base without removing the whole post, which is pretty integral to these structures. Some of the elements for climbing, balancing, those sorts of things are, again, at the end of their life. The belts are torn. There's a climbing net, which is a steel cable that's wrapped in nylon. The nylon is frayed and the steel is becoming exposed, and that's not a good thing. And then some of the climbing elements, there's newer and better stuff that will show you that we think would be more appropriate. So now we'll go on to Restoration recommendations, I don't know what's going on with the font there, it's a little funky, but first is replacing the swing, and we'll show you some options on some more dynamic swings that are available on the market now. And going through the play structures and restoring them. Replacing what wood needs to be replaced, reinforcing the structural components, and bringing it back to life. And then limited replacement of some play elements and possibly some addition of new elements. So we have on the right there the list of all the elements that we think should be addressed just in this first flush. The swings, again, would be wholesale replacement of them from scratch. There are two elements there. There's kind of like a playhouse structure, and then there's a structure that sort of mimics a boat. We don't see a ton of play value in either of those, and the 2 to 5 year old area is kind of lacking in dynamic elements. So we really think those are targets for replacement because, again, the wood is mostly rotted at the end of its life. And yes, we could restore it, but we think there's more value in doing new there. And then all the numbers you see dotted on the 5 to 12 year old area is restoring and replacing existing elements. This is a list of what those repair elements would be. From, I mentioned, replacing hardware and tube slides, really simple things like that. The posts we have outlined in a color there, that's really the one that's hardest to resolve. The Jay's Nest sign also is not, it's fastened to the guardrail, which is not, it's structural for itself and for its purpose. It's not structural in a way as it's currently built to hold a sign as large as it's holding. So we would want to revisit that as well, make sure that that's not a hazard. In part of this process too, we visited another Leathers and Associates playground that is facing very similar issues to you guys, where the wood has rotted and they were faced with the decision to either tear it down and build new or to bring it back to life, and they chose to bring it back to life. This is a much bigger play structure, but nonetheless, they faced a lot of the same issues. One of the things they did in the restoration is they added kind of a canvas on those peaked roofs, and that helps to waterproof, so water is not sort of entering into the structure, it's shedding on the outside of the structure, which I think was a pretty smart thing. And they also put post caps on to protect that end grain where they were replacing posts. You can kind of see the timeline of their efforts to when construction happened, when safety audits happened, and it's actually a similar timeline to what Seaford is facing. Another thing they have here, which is kind of a product of the design of the structure, is on their towers they have windows cut out, and then they have a mesh in the windows just to close it off and protect it. But that would be a technique that we could use on these towers to open the towers up a little bit, get visibility into them, just so that we can kind of control a little bit more how it's used. So I mentioned that there are more dynamic swings available on the market today. One of the things that we like to do in our practice is we like to use swings that are non-traditional, not your typical belt seat. We certainly still do belt seats, but we try to look for social swings, we call them. Swings where more than one child can interact with that swing, or a parent can interact with a child on the same swing. Some of the best ones are those basket swings like you see in the bottom left there. In this case, it's for older kids. So it's on one tether point that can rotate so that not only can it swing, but it can spin. So it's a lot more dynamic. The other beautiful thing about the basket swings is that kids that have mobility issues can use the same swing as an able-bodied child. So you're playing on the same level. It's not a special seat. For the 2 to 5 year old age group, You can also provide a basket swing. We like to tether them on two sides so they can't spin. They can just go back and forth, so it's a little bit more controlled for their bodies and their development. Again, you can have swings where the parent and a child can interact at the same time, and rather than just pushing the kid, you can actually swing with the kid. Replacing the belts. Kids love the belts. They love to bounce on them, run on them. So there's totally good to replace those. And then there is a little old school like Springer bouncer that's out there today. We can bring that back, but in a new way. We like these platforms a little bit better because multiple kids can get on them at the same time. Again, more social activity, less singular activity. The balancing pieces of the existing playground are basically chains wrapped in like a plastic pipe. We're saying let's go back with similar stuff, but more robust stuff that's going to last a long time. Developmentally, it's a little bit more challenging in some respects, but also easier to use in other respects because it's a more robust kind of balance structure. These could be adapted to the existing playground structure, so it's not like we have to replace a whole bunch of stuff to incorporate these elements. Similar themes of replacing chains with the plastic tubing on it. The climbing net, we could go back with a traditional kind of like square net, or we could have a little bit more fun and we could do one of these heavy rope nets shaped like a spider web, which introduces a slight opportunity for imaginative play, not just climbing. For elements to replace the boat and the playhouse, we like the idea of maybe bringing in some music. The musical instruments that are there are a couple, they're no longer functioning. So it'd be nice to bring that element back. We're showing these structures because it's a standard product. These are all built to order, but you could go to a catalog and pick these out. Architecturally, we think that this play structure speaks to the existing play structures. You know, it's wood and it has the similar kind of roof lines in some respects. We can replace some of the perimeter fencing with panels, interpretive panels, so we can give some of that perimeter fencing a little bit more purpose rather than just donor recognition. Not every single picket has a donor on it, so we have some opportunity there for infill. Again, to make the 2 to 5 year old area a little bit more dynamic and interesting. Right now it's a little underwhelming, particularly compared to the 5 to 12 year old area. There's a legacy history in Seaford with boats and ships, and I think it would be totally appropriate to replace the current boat with a more literal boat. The beautiful thing about this play structure is it's like really good bang for the buck. It's a sizable structure, it makes a statement, it can accommodate quite a lot of kids for the amount of money you're spending on it. Comparatively, if we go back a couple, like the Crooked Den in that top with the green roof, that's like a $50,000 structure. This is about a $20,000 structure, so there's a lot of value there. That's what we see as the sort of baseline of addressing the immediate needs. Then the future needs would be, what else can we bring to the table on the playground that it doesn't have? Because we are essentially restoring a playground that was developed in 2002, and there's been a lot of innovation in the last 20 years. So we can expand the 2 to 5 year old area. We can incorporate some more dynamic sand elements. Right now the sand is just there. There's no way to really interact with it unless you bring stuff with you, buckets and shovels with you. We can incorporate a lot of spinning elements. There's no spinning elements there today. And then there is fitness equipment that we can add, which would be appropriate being associated with the sports complex. But there's also passive elements that we can add too, like hammocks and seating and things of that nature. So I'll flip through some options for additional structures we can add, 2 to 5-year-old. Again, we were seeking off-the-shelf kind of structures that have been designed to meet all the safety guidelines already. It's kind of gone through that process, so it's just a matter of order and building. Again, that architecturally speaks to the existing playground. Or we could go a little bit more whimsical with the compound structures. Another example, there's too many to choose from. This is just a small palette. This is another manufacturer. Again, these are sort of catalog pieces, but they're really built to order. In the top left there, you see the bird, which doubles as a climbing structure, but also as a gathering structure. Kids could be equally climbing on the outside like you see here and sitting and chatting on the inside. And of course, it speaks to the history and the context. For sand play, there's lots of interesting elements that we could incorporate that are tethered. So you don't have to bring your own bucket. The bucket is there, and it's on a chain, but it's mobile and it can be used. It's on pulley systems, or you can use these sort of shovels. And there's there's two options that articulate differently with, going like this or turning. So for motor development, there's things we can incorporate for sand play that facilitate different types of motor skill development. And then again, for water play, all fixed elements, but water is always a big hit on a playground. And we can either incorporate it with the sand play or not. Usually not, just because it's easier for maintenance. But they're all fixed elements. There's pumps. Those pumps take a little bit of effort to get water out of them, so there's muscle building associated with those. The water tables there on the bottom, that center beam teeters, and you can control what table the water goes to. So they're somewhat dynamic, but kind of fixed elements at the same time. And then sound play. There's some fun sound tubes we can do, all kinds of percussion instruments. All of these instruments are tuned, so no matter how you play them, they sound good. There's no wrong way to play these instruments. Again, there's ones with like sticks and paddles that have one type of motor development, and then there's also tubes that you hit with your palms, and that's a different type of motor development. One thing the playground doesn't have a lot of is risk. And this is kind of a thing that is being brought back to playgrounds. We had it when, many, many years ago, and then the playgrounds kind of got over-sanitized and maybe a little too safe. This is an option for you to consider where they call it a cliff rider, but it's a controlled element that is basically a pendulum. That bottom piece has a restrictor in it, so it's not like this thing's free-floating. It can only go so fast. But it allows the kid to sort of push off and kind of fly through the air to the next platform. These are incredibly popular. And then I mentioned spinning. So the overhead spinners are incredibly popular. That bottom left one is by Game Time, which is my favorite of all the manufacturers. And then a huge magnet actually is the carousel in the bottom middle. That is a social hub. I don't know why, but like even high schoolers will just go to it and sit there and talk. But again, it's one of those things where able-bodied kids and kids that have some disabilities can all be on the same platform. Adult fitness. Compan is a really unique fitness equipment out right now that few have been able to compete with body weight elements. The kettlebells that you see there on the poles, again, they have a mechanism in them to control their movement. There's some force on the up, and then it's very controlled on the down. And they're very durable. I've tried to break them without success. So one of the good things about these is, like, while there are some moving parts to them, they're extremely durable. Other options are things like zip lines. This is a little bit more risky, just with managing the safety of it. So that would be something to discuss further. And then again, I mentioned sort of non-active activities, so things like hammocks or small-scale seating for kids. Oftentimes that gets overlooked. We provide seating for the grown-ups, but not the kids. And then the final thing here is to consider getting rid of the engineered wood fiber and coming back with a unitary surface, like a poured rubber surface. We're showing here in a tan color that sort of mimics that wood fiber color. This is fully accessible, low maintenance, porous. It does all the things you need to do. It lasts longer than wood fiber, but there's a premium to that. It's very expensive.
Hi, it's me again. I think this is a good time to manage expectations and kind of let you know where we're at. We're close to knowing what we can commit, like, as soon as next year. But we do see this project as a multi-year project where we continue to be connected to the community and working with the community to improve it. We hope that, in the time period to come and the years to come, that support like individuals like yourselves as well as other stakeholders can help us potentially generate more funds to put towards a project, as well as our own organization looking for grants and things of that nature to continue to improve upon it. So when Brad did the assessment, it was pretty clear that there's a lot that's not safe with the playground right now, so it became our priority to make it safe. And the swings and a couple of the other elements that Brad pointed out, those need to be replaced. So our focus would be to get the playground safe, as well as and replace those unsafe pieces that are beyond repair. We've also taken community input of potentially opening it up a little bit more so that it's more of a kids area and there's other people, climbing onto it and stuff. So that would be our main focus as of right now, and that's kind of why we're here now at this point, just to make sure that we have your blessing and the community's blessing to take this next step further and then really get a real assessment of how much it's going to cost to repair what needs to be repaired, as well as present you with a more pointed proposal for the specific pieces and the specific pieces to be incorporated in the design. And then, like I said, we're part of the Nylon project. Our intention is not go anywhere, to continue to help with this project and others around Seaford. But just wanted to clarify that that's kind of why we're here now, to get your blessing and make sure that before we go too far to then take a next step. But there is a lot of work that still needs to get done prior to breaking ground or anything like that. Is that cover? So I think that's it for us. We can take questions if.
Well, first and foremost, we appreciate you guys taking a look at it. I was out there this past Saturday, and our Parks and Recreation Director, Kate Hickey, is in the audience, and she'd be happy to know you had a filled playground, filled ball field, baseball, football. It's a packed house on Saturday, so it was great to see, and it definitely needs a few little TLC, if you will. We appreciate you guys looking at it. Are there any questions from council regarding this matter? Councilman Quillen.
Not directly a question, but I just wanted to thank you for coming and presenting this evening. This is the second time I've seen this, and every time I see it, I get more excited about it. So I really appreciate this, and I'm hoping that we can put a motion together here and work together here in the future. Because I'm the liaison for the Parks and Rec, so Superintendent Hickey and I would love to continue to work with you here. So thank you again for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Any additional questions or comments? Oh, Vice Mayor.
Just a short comment. As one of the original donors to the complex, it's awesome to see that it's going to be restored and even expanded on, that there's an opportunity for that. You know, it's brought a lot of joy to my own daughter. That was one of the reasons why we were so invested in it at the beginning, and it's nice to see that it'll be taken care of for generations to come.
Amen.
Thank you.
Yeah, and as Brad mentioned, it's obvious when you're there with all the names that are all over that a lot of love and care from a lot of people, the community went into that. And so there's a lot of creative and interesting ways that we can preserve those original names so they're still on display there, even with any other work that's done. So the original essence and the care and love that was put in that place lives on.
Any other questions or comments from council?
No, I just wanted to echo with what Vice Mayor Henderson said. My late husband and I were two of the parents who were out there building it, and now I take my grandchildren out there in that 20 years. So it's going to be wonderful to see something that she will appreciate, you know, and he and the rest of my grandbabies when I take them out there where I took their parents. So I appreciate that.
That's awesome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council? Okay. If there are no additional questions or comments, I'll set the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the city staff to continue to work with Tri-State Community Partners to further development a plan and funding for renovations and enhancements to the Jay's Nest Playground facility at the Seaford Sports Complex as presented.
We have a motion from Councilman Quillen. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
A second from Councilman Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you guys very much. Looking forward to it.
Thank you again, gentlemen.
Yep, appreciate it.
Move on to new business number 2, and I'm going to bring back, once again, Burley Mears. Director Mears, if you will.
Okay, so again, a few months ago, I came to you guys for approval to install water meters in one of the developments that already had meter pits, as well as the phase 3 that was going in this development. They were installing irrigation meter pits. So I was asking to install meters in all of those pits so that we can get some data for consumption data, so we can see what the consumption actually is. So I sent you all the spreadsheet of the data for July. It's a lot of information to go through, but I went ahead and tried to put it in some slides that we can run through. So there's 170 total accounts out in the subdivision, and like I said, it's 3 phases: phase 1, 2, and 3. 3 is still under construction. 16 more lots at the time of this still needed to have meter pits and meters installed. So I collected, like I said, for the consumption for July. Currently, 34 of the 170 accounts have dedicated irrigation water meters. The lowest consumption of these 34 accounts for the month of July was 8,410 gallons, which is over what we currently flat rate charge of 1 EDU, which is 7,500 gallons. The highest consumption was 73,040 gallons, which is obviously all over the minimum. The total amount of water consumed by these 34 accounts for the month of July was 757,990 gallons of water. We base our billing off of 7,500 gallons a month, which would equal 255,000 gallons for those same 34 accounts. So as you can see, about 500,000 gallons of water was consumed and not billed for. 136 accounts are non-irrigation house accounts, mainly phase 1 and 2, or all of phase 1 and 2 is what that consists of. So 51 of these 136 accounts used over the minimum 7,500 gallons, which actually was surprising to me. You know, where we do have meters in some non-single family homes, you know, apartment complexes, things like that, of course, they don't have yards. They use a lot less water than even the minimum. But because these have yards, a lot of them are irrigating with hoses. Quite a few of them have timers on their hose bibs, which, you know, they can easily irrigate their lawns. So for the month of July, being 8,130 gallons was the highest consumption being, yeah, it was the lowest consumption I saw, and then 61,460 gallons for one property. So that's just a house account, no irrigation pit, that's just 1 meter, and we saw a consumption of 61,000 gallons, which was surprising to me. The total amount of water consumed by these 51 accounts for the month was 800,760 gallons. We base our billing off of 7,500 gallons, as I stated, which equals 382,500 gallons for those 51 accounts. And then there's another 418,260 gallons that was consumed and not billed for. So this is just I track every month the well water that we pump. And as you can see, for the months of June and July for 2024, we're up to around 40 million gallons per month, well over what we have over the last 5 years. It actually, we had one spike, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or so, that was close to the 40, but other than that, it's usually never near the 40 million gallons. So June well flows are up about 7 million gallons versus the 5-year average. July well flows are up around 5 million gallons versus the 5-year average. I'm sorry, the first one was June, the second one was July. We are seeing irrigations running during rain events. I did confirm, Mike confirmed today that they do all have rain sensors, but obviously they must not be working because both Charles and I have seen them running in the rain. We are seeing the streets being watered and they're running down the roads to the catch basins. We are having, I have 3 properties out there that they're over irrigating basically. One's running 3 times a day, and they run into a little swale and they come out to the road, and I'll show you a video of what it's actually doing out there. People will ultimately make a decision to educate themselves and observe once they are paying for the water that they're actually using. That's my belief anyway, because I know I would. So this is just a little video if I can figure out how to start it. So what's happening, there's 2 houses you see on the left, and then there's a house in front of me. They kind of all come together in that little swale in the middle, kind of where the light pole is. You can't really see in here, but it was sheeting across that sidewalk. And then under the sidewalk and under the rolled curb, there's stone base. So stone base is actually acting like a conduit for the water. And what I'm trying to point out here is that we actually went over there for a water leak. Because you can actually see in this right here, the water is actually coming up from the ground. So it's just, there's that much water in the ground that it's finding its way out. So the contractor, because this is still under the contractor's purview, they went ahead and dug up their water service there, and the water service was fine. It's actually about 10 feet down to the right. So there's no services or infrastructure in that area. The water main's across the street. So we determined that it was the over-irrigating of the irrigation because we shut those 3 irrigations off for about a week and it all dried up. So we can pretty much say that that's what it's for, or that's what it's from. So what I'm asking for is to make a code change. So right now, section 14.3-15C requires all irrigation systems connected to the water system of the city of Seaford, unless a water meter and meter pit. Let me restate that. No lawn irrigation system shall be connected to the water system of the city of Seaford unless a water meter and meter pit as specified by the city of Seaford has been installed as required in section 14.3.7. So basically that's saying that if you have irrigation, you have to install a irrigation pit. So 14.3.7E, which is tied to this other one, says lawn irrigation system shall be required to install an additional meter and pit that shall separately service the irrigation system only as described in the other code of this chapter. The last sentence of this says, a meter shall not be required for an irrigation systems for a single-family dwelling unit. So my recommendation is to strike that last sentence so that we would then be able to require a meter pit to be installed in residential irrigation systems and then used for building. So at this time, that's all I'm really asking for, is if there is a current existing meter pit for an irrigation, that we use them to start building. We stick a meter in there, we start building off of those. There are also, not just in this development, but other developments, and then sporadically through the town, there are also in-ground irrigation systems that already have pits with no meters in them. So I would be looking to try to put meters in those and bill on them as well. So that's all it is at this moment that we're trying to do.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments from council for Director Mears? Vice Mayor Henderson.
Could you repeat that? I mean, nowhere in here is that in writing that you're asking us to strike a ordinance, a line in an ordinance.
So I think we can clarify that. So the director wanted to come forward, follow up on the presentation that he gave at the beginning of the summer with this information. In his review of the code, it would require a code change of the municipal code. So our conversation is, he wanted to get feedback from council tonight. If council desires to proceed as recommended, we'll bring back the code change that he's outlined next month. And it's not a zoning ordinance change, so it has required 2 readings and then an advertising. Our general plan, if council agrees, is to do the 2 readings in September, advertising in October, and then the billing would start on or about November 1st for this change.
Just review for me how you're going to go. You're just going to require those folks who already have an existing pit to put the meter in, and then you'll start billing them at that rate, the water-only rate.
Water-only rate.
So what about the other customers?
Which other customers?
There are other customers out there that have in-ground
Yep.
irrigation that aren't on a separate meter.
Correct. So the code already says you're supposed to have a pit. So we need to identify them and then work with them to get a pit installed.
Okay. And that's through, is that going to be language, the upcoming? I mean, it's already in writing.
Yeah, it's already in the
It's
code.
already there, but
Yeah,
how
we
you
wanna
going to communicate it? How?
But it's in writing based on when that was passed. So if your house was built before that, before it was required, you may,
This code's been along for a long time. I don't know exactly when. We can go back and see exactly when, but this.
I thought somebody said it was like 15 years.
Yeah, somewhere like that, yeah.
That-
Not
So-
forever.
The
Not
15
forever.
years is when we in the code department, the city, started to require these meter pits. So as you replaced your water service or installed a new water service, that new requirement was you need a meter pit. And in the very beginning, we did 1 meter pit, and it did everything, domestic as well as irrigation. We modified that some years later to say we want 2 because we have these issues. And as the department has been collecting additional data like this is not the first time Mr. Mears has come forward and said this is how much water is being consumed. And with conservation efforts and with increasing state regulations, as with everything, all of these requirements have gotten more stringent.
Right, but if you have a home that was built prior to this being in there and you have in-ground irrigation, you might not have a pit,
You might not.
and therefore, we would have to have another conversation about what
Yeah.
happens to those people who fall into that category.
Yeah, I think there's probably more than three, but there's kind of three categories where this goes, I think, and in our conversations. What Mr. Mears is here tonight is to say those people that have irrigation meter pits, we can properly bill, they have it, he'd like to start billing them and working with them. There's a second group of people who have one main meter or one pit, we can install a meter. And that's a different thing, because if we're not careful, we don't want to charge them sewer charge for the irrigation water. So we want to work with them to talk about separating that so we can bill it properly. He's not asking to do that right now. He's asking to start working with that group of customers and saying, this is what we have, this is what's going on. There's a third group that some of us fall into where we have nothing. We have a water line without a meter, without a pit, without anything, without any irrigation system. So we have that as well.
That is correct. So all of this, leads to conservation efforts, but also consumption reporting. So every year I have to submit to the state how much water I pump, but then also where it goes. And I can never tell them, because I have all the commercial industrial side. I can say, yep, they use this, yep, they residential, because we flat rate bill, I just don't. I just can say that the rest of it goes to that, to residential, but I can't confirm exactly how much it is, so.
Well, there should also be an education piece in this, because just like whomever it was that's using 61,000 gallons but doesn't have irrigation, I mean, I don't know if they have a pool they keep filling or, what in the backyard, but, something could be wrong. I mean, I guess something could be wrong too. Something could be leaking.
Combination of things.
Right, and also, I would bet there's lots of people who don't know how to use the irrigation, me included, and it just might be a matter of education to say, this is what it's doing. You can't run it, you shouldn't run it 3 times a day.
Right. And I think that's why we're not trying to go out tomorrow and say, hey, you have to put a pit in, and hey, we're going to start billing you. I think once we identify them, then I think there'll be a process to educate them and work with them and.
Because they'll want to get educated when they get a bill for 61,000 gallons.
And I would as well.
They'll want to be educated fast.
Yep.
Yeah, I think a better approach, you're correct. I think a better approach is to potentially, we can start communicating with them via writing or things like that, where we can say, your bill would have been X number of dollars had this been enacted, rather than kind of hitting with them with the bill and having to write it off or, so, yeah, I think that's the approach the director wants to take is, let's start that communication process over the next period of time.
Curiosity's killing me here, in that, is there any particular area where the abuse is more prevalent than another? I'm
Seaford.
just curious.
It's in every neighborhood.
Yeah, but I mean, you're doing these numbers, I'm thinking, my God, I'd like to see where all, yeah.
So this particular study was done in Muirfield, which is development out in the Public Works building. I already had approval to start putting them in Governor's Grant. And why I'm choosing them is not to pick them out, but it's because when they built those communities or the developments, they were already required to put pits in. So it's easy to put a meter in there and put them in. But it does happen throughout town because there's no reason not to use as much water as you want.
And what we're seeing, I think, maybe to dovetail with Councilwoman Grassett's comment, the developers are building these houses and they're installing irrigation and they're handing it to these homeowners. However it was set up by them, they don't really, some of them do, but not all of them understand what they got, how often it's running, how to maintain it. They need to winterize it,
requirements for the city.
Yeah, so we're seeing in these newer developments, where it's a standard option with the new homes.
Yeah, what you're seeing is, so these developers, they're all putting sod down. So they're turning the irrigations on a lot because they're trying to oversaturate the sod when they first get it put in. And then the homeowners come in, they get the property, they don't make any adjustments because they just think that's how it's supposed to be. So that's my opinion of how they're over.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah, thank you.
Vice Mayor.
So just to illustrate a point, I mean, we're talking about in-ground irrigation, and I understand the need for conservation. But the worst-case scenarios that you just pointed out, it could be a leaking toilet. 1 gallon a minute for a month is over 43,000 gallons. If the valve is stuck in your toilet and you're leaking out 1 gallon a minute, that's 43,000 gallons. So, we're blaming irrigation, but we're also got to point out that it's important to maintain your facility.
Right.
So, I understand, I don't want to give irrigators a bad rap.
Right.
But when you have that, I mean, leaking plumbing in a house is even worse because it's going into the drainage system and it's running through your sewer.
Right.
So that makes it even worse. So I know, whatever, you're trying to use this as a management tool because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I respect that. I just think there's, is November 1st a little ambitious as far as communicating, as far as getting the word out?
So again, for this group, that they're ready to go, I don't think it's too ambitious. If council's supportive of the group that has the infrastructure in place, the billing, we've worked with the director of finance. That's a pretty, turn the code on in the MCSJ system, they start generating the bill. One of the advantages of the November 1st deadline, as you're well aware, it is a shoulder season for this consumption. So typically those consumptions go way down. That helps us with the communication because they are going to get a bill and they're going to say, why is my bill more? I'm used to paying this amount, now it's up. So that starts the conversation with them because your irrigation meter was running. And we could have people that still let it run 3 times a day, 6 days a week, and it's going to be a large number.
But by November, you would assume most of them are shut down.
If they're
You would hope so.
properly maintained.
If they're properly maintained,
Yeah. And we can provide some kind of quote-unquote technical assistance to property owners. The building department, the public works department, if they call, we can give them some basic help with their system, not in-depth technical details, but we can talk to them about, it is your irrigation most likely, so on and so. I mean, one of the easiest things to do is shut that irrigation pit off, and if it stops, that's where the leak is coming from.
Yeah, but I definitely, I don't think we're just going to send them a bill. I would like to communicate with them through a pamphlet, through meeting with them, whatever, to let them know that this change is coming, and what they can do. I can dig up some information on what's required, for irrigating and things like that, and give them to them. I've spoken to a handful of them out there, trying to educate them a little bit.
Because my guess is if they don't know that you don't need to water your grass 3 times a day, they don't know how to winterize it and shut it off. I mean, so, yeah.
That's true.
Councilman
And I
Quillen?
think you should call the 61,000 gallon lady or gentleman and give them a
Councilman
plumber
Quillen?
name.
Councilman Quillen?
Just a quick one, Director Mears. How often do you monitor that? I mean, if you, let's like going back to what Vice Mayor Henderson said about a toilet leaking. You're halfway through the month and you see this resident has used 20,000 gallons of water. Do you see that on a regular basis, or do you just look at the monthly basis and go from that?
So the system pulls a monthly reading, but I can go in and actually get daily readings
But
for each account.
You have thousands of houses to check every.
Yeah,
But
yep.
I mean,
So, but of
I
these,
believe I'm correct. Our system has a variance built in, and it'll send an email to our, Ms. Sapp used to get them, and she would call commercial industrial customers to say, hey, something's going on, if there was an issue. Am I correct with that?
You are, because I got a phone call one time.
I think that was courtesy.
She would run reports
Yeah, it was,
But we try to provide that for our C&I customers because there's not a ton of them. I think, how many C&I meters do you have out there, Mr. Mayor? 500? 1,500, I'm sorry.
yeah, it's more
Sorry.
like that, yeah.
So that, while that's a lot, it's not a huge number. And we do have, we had staff members that could do that. And if we saw this huge issue, we did try to get it to them because it did become, as you know, it can become painful for the customer if it goes for a month, and they got to pay that bill.
Yeah, but I think there's some education and some possible issues to be resolved too. Just these 51 house meters that are all using over 8,000 gallons a month. That, to me, that's a lot of water on a daily basis. So, and a good majority of them are over 10,000 gallons, to 20,000 to 30, all the way up to the 61,000 gallons.
If I could interject.
Sure.
Some of these homes that you're measuring are not your traditional family home. They're not 4-occupant homes. There are 8 or 10 people living in these homes. So your consumption is going to go up quite naturally.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, should be paid for.
Are there any questions or comments for Director Mears? Okay, if there are no additional questions or comments, I'll accept the motion.
Sorry, I'd lost it. I would like to, Councilwoman Grassett, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of Burley Mears, Director of Public Works, to start billing water consumption based on meter readings as of November 1st, 2024, or upon the effective date of the proposed ordinance amendment as presented.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman McQuillan, I'll second.
Second from Councilman Quillen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. We're going to move past number 3, because that was skipped. Is there any old business?
No, sir, there is not.
Okay. We'll move on to a reminder of meetings and setting of new meetings.
Thank you, sir. Just a few. All city offices, excluding the police department, will be closed Monday, September 2nd, in observance of the Labor Day holiday. Sussex County Association of Towns meeting Wednesday, September 4th at 5:30 p.m. at Bear Trap Dunes in Ocean View, Delaware. I believe 2 have signed up for that, so thank you for that. Friday Night Live will be September 6th, 5 p.m. on the grass lot behind City Hall. And the first meeting of the Mayor and Council for September has been moved to Wednesday night, September 11th at 7 p.m. due to the council chambers being used as a polling place for the state primary elections. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, City Manager. We're going to move on to the liaison reports and Councilwoman Grassett.
Speaking of Public Works and Wastewater Department, in our report for this 2-week time period, Public Works has removed and rebuilt one of their sweeper heads. Both Magnolia and Dulaney Streets have been paved. They replaced fire hydrants on Chandler and on Grant Streets. They have been chipping and regrading the limb and leaf area to get some more life out of that. They've been replacing signs throughout the city. They also have been taking care of water leaks, doing some patches, replaced water meters at several places, and started cleaning some of the key sewers. In wastewater treatment and compost, they did find an influent pipe to the treatment facility was half filled with stone and debris, and they are working on getting it cleaned. They did have someone from Brainerd run tests for potential PAA use for disinfection, which could result in significant chemical savings for the department. They also have repaired a leaking hydrant on the blower building and dealt with some intermittent issues with sediment from their bulk chlorine tank. It's been plugging the feeding line, and they plan to flush that tank next week, or this week actually. In the upcoming weeks, they plan to continue their cammering of sewer mains. They're going to install water service on Pond Street, replace additional hydrants, and perform routine maintenance. And that is a report from Public Works and Wastewater.
Thank you very much. Going to move on to Police and Fire and Vice Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief Wilson of the Fire Department has submitted his report. Under fire statistics, there are, so far in August, there's 72 calls for an average of 2.7 per day. The average for the total of the year is 3.05 per day. Under EMS, there have been 300 calls to date in August for an average of 11.5 calls per day, and the total year-to-date is 12.8 calls per day. Under significant incidents, there were some assists to other neighboring stations. However, on August 16th, there was a residential fire at 321 North Willie Street. All apparatus is currently in service. The last training was training for dry hydrant drafting and flushing. That was on August 21st. Pardon me, a dry hydrant is something that you might find at a spillway or a dam or a bridge where an engine can draft water from a waterway, and a lot of times they get clogged up, so they had a training session for back flushing those out and drafting for those structures. And help me out, Charles, are there 6 or 7 dry hydrants in the Seaford Fire District?
Yes.
And a couple of them are out of service. They need repair. So the next training is September 18th for vehicle rescue evolutions at Station 71's pad. Under EMS, part-time EMT Dakota Willity has completed her EMT fail training, and she's cleared to function as a full EMT. So congratulate her if you encounter her. And she's going to start working on her driver training immediately. Seaford High School football games for EMS standbys are going to start in September. And firefighter and EMT Noah Jackson completed his advanced vehicle rescue training on the 25th of August. You may recall last meeting I mentioned PFAS, the Class B foam. Chief Wilson reports that all our Class B foam with PFAS was destroyed by the State of Delaware approved contractor, and Seaford Volunteer Fire Department received 11 5-gallon pails of environmentally friendly Class B foam. Ladder 87 received the necessary repairs for the NFPA aerial certification, and the fire department members, many fire department members attended the line of duty funeral of firefighter Thomas Berry III from Station 7775 in Sussex County EMS on Thursday, August 22nd. Firefighter Berry was killed by an electrical wire in the Georgetown Fire District, and that was a tragic loss from a gentleman with a very bright future, and it's just an extreme tragedy. The north parking lot awning is being repaired by a city contractor, and there will be parking bollards placed in front of both doors on the north side on Wednesday, August 28th. That would be tomorrow. Chief Kraft has submitted a complete police department report showing the chart with historical data and numbers of responses and numbers of crimes listed Under all crimes, there are 159 all crimes, and you'll see the distribution between felony, misdemeanor, violations, civil, and other, for an 88% clearance rate, which is down slightly from the previous period. Under drug complaints, there's 17 drug complaints, 10 adult arrests, and 7 pending active. There was 1 overdose on Arch Street during this period. Traffic citations and contacts, there were 206 traffic contacts resulting in 55 citations and 14 warnings. 2 DUIs, 0 crash related. 21 crashes, and you'll see the distribution there, 7 non-reportable and 14 reportable. 3 hit-and-run accidents, 2 on private property and 1 on the roadway on Shipley Street. 1 motorcycle accident. And you'll see the distribution of those crash data and traffic data below in the crime view. You can expand it so that you can see the numbers a little bit more clearly. Under significant events, I did highlight the event on August 16th, where SPD addressed ongoing loitering and sidewalk blockage at Wolford Street and North Street. Officers identified Jonathan Dugazan, Elijah Desir, Donald White, Schweitzer Dessine, Tajah Bacon, Jean-Lee Miracle, and Jameer Harrison. Desir and Bacon fled. Desir was caught with 48.7 grams of crack cocaine and 130 bags of heroin. He was arrested and held on $131,801 bond. White had 82.7 grams of marijuana packaged in separate baggies and was held on $15,001 bond. Warrants were out for Bacon for loitering and resisting arrest. The others were charged with loitering and released, but all but Dugazan, pardon me if I'm mispronouncing it, having no contact order with North Street and Wolford Street. You might recall several weeks ago, we had some citizen complaints, and some of this is a result of a response to public comment where people brought their concerns before the council. So it does work. So I will leave you to read the next to the last incident on your own, because I don't know how to pronounce that name. So,
Fair enough.
Under administration, the chief and his administration were very busy planning the Seaford Night Out meeting, statewide strategic ops meeting. We had a police chief's accountability and advisory board meeting last week, and the sergeant's meeting. So they were very active last week. There's an ongoing Food On program in partnership with the HELP Initiative. You might recall Charlie Kistler comes before the council several times a year with different on programs. It was Lights On Seaford, and then it was Health On Seaford, Safety On, and now Food On. And there are programs yet to be unveiled. I'm hopeful that it happens soon, that the HELP Initiative is involved with, and Officer Yost, Wilson, Blake, Kramer, and Cadet Brumley helped distribute food there. Last weekend at Nutter Park, there was a backpack giveaway, a very large community event. I was otherwise engaged. I couldn't attend that, but I understand there was a former basketball star out there dribbling.
I heard that too.
teaching people how to play basketball with a hat on backwards.
Not calling no names.
Well, we thank you for your community involvement, Mayor. And under cadets, they were on bicycle patrol and ride-alongs, assisting patrol officers with complaints, arrests, proactive pedestrian and bicycle stops, and community engagement. The cadets handled minor offenses with multiple prisoner transport to Sussex Correctional Institute. Cadet Morales continued to assist with translating on numerous occasions, and that concludes my report for a very busy period.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. I'm going to move over to Administration and IT, and Councilman Orlando Hollins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Meeting was held with Title Health to discuss plans for the new Seaford campus, and they met with Nanticoke Senior Center representative regarding the process of several projects at their 1001 Locust Street location. And Bremen Horns Outdoor Patio is currently under construction. And they attended the Downtown Seaford Association annual picnic along with other council members and the mayor, and attended various other meetings and events, and all the work is routine. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Holland. I'm going to move over to Electric, and Councilman Mike Bradley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill Bennett is on vacation this week. Crew buried conduit at the TRPM project, replaced a pole on Nanticoke Avenue, set 6 poles and hung 250 feet of netting on the driving range at Hooper's Landing. Hopefully this will reduce stray balls from going across Sussex Avenue. Pulled primary wire and set the transformers at KRM. First night with my new tongue, I'm sorry.
Having trouble myself.
Attended a DEMAC seminar on underground faults. Pre-construction meeting at Veterans Memorial for new flagpoles, and talked to an engineer about Balsamo project. Ordered a sample CT cabinet for possible purchase. Respectfully submitted, Mike Bradley.
Thank you, Councilman. And last but not least, Code, Park, and Recreation, Councilman Alan Quillen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I'll start with the Code Department. Right now, currently in 2024, we have 241 issued, which is 4 more since our last report that I submitted. License rentals are staying the same at 1,796. And Mr. Shockley is going out and doing rental inspections at this time. He's on vacation this week, but bless you. We'll continue next week as well. Doing violation inspections throughout the city, performing planning reviews for new permits as well. Large projects are still kind of remaining the same. Muirfield 1 Phase 3, still putting in 51 home lots there. Have started Phase 4 with some sewage and water plumbing going out through there. Bel Air also is still pretty much the same with 10 lots going in there. And the Western Sussex campus, also working on the sidewalks and doing the landscaping out there. Nylon Capital project, that is moving along pretty good. They're also started the demolition back on the back part of the buildings back there next to the old shopping center, so that has started back in there as well. And Taylor Professional Center is also started in with doing some plumbing and some sewage back in that area as well. That completes the code report. I'll go into the Parks and Rec report. Parks, been setting up goals and nets and fields for the youth soccer and flag football. Completed repairs on a mower and a tractor. Assisted with the fence installation at Birmingham Meadery. Also, if you all will know that there's a project that was going to happen with Kiwanis Park and the expansion of the memorial area there. That is started, so there was a lot of plants that were there, so the Parks and Rec removed the plants from there and also replanted them back here right behind City Hall here in this section there up on the picture there. So the beautification on that area there, it looks very nice. So thank you, Superintendent. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that. Prepping softball, football, and fields for the weekend events and rentals. Going into recreation, in fall men's softball league has started up. I think starts this week, and they have 8 teams performing in that league. Held its first week of adult pickleball and have 25 participants. Got my new tie on too. And I believe the last night of that it's going to be tomorrow evening on that. Ordered jerseys and for youth soccer and flag football. Began to work on schedules for youth soccer and football programs. Had a meeting with Civic Rec, which is an online registration rental software program. Held a Riverfest committee meeting on the 8th or the 15th of this month, discuss ideas. And I think there's going to be some nice ideas coming out of that to refresh the possible river event coming back for next year. Created and sent out a bid for a package for a replacement of a mower and a snow blower. One of the tractors had a lot of repairs that needed to be done to it, and it was more costly to do the repairs and then just to go ahead and look into getting a new mower for that. Assisted in Seaford tomorrow with their Friday Night Live on the 16th, and that completes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Quillen. One quick comment before we get out of here tonight. I want to thank everyone at the city level, all the various departments, council, who had either intended to help us this morning or were able to show up after the 2-hour delay at the schools to welcome the kids back to school. Always an awesome event to see the kids come back. I know I like it. I'm not so much about the kids, but there are a lot of excited kids to get back to school and see their teachers, and to see the community come together in mornings like this and to welcome the kids back. It's a really, really great thing. Just want to say to all the students out there, not just here in Seaford, but all surrounding cities and town, we wish you all a very excellent upcoming school year. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Councilman Holland, I make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
We have a motion from Councilman Holland. Do we have a second?
Councilman Quillen, I'll second.
We have a second from Councilman Quillen. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, it's unanimous. Have a good night. You got me cracking up, man.